Forget everything you thought you knew about the boy in white. Because the biggest mystery in From was never whether he was trying to help. The real mystery is why he keeps making mistakes that no truly all-knowing being should ever make. And one mistake changes everything. One tiny moment quietly destroys the idea that the boy in white is a human ghost, or even the spirit of a dead child. Instead, it suggests something much darker. What if the boy in white isn't remembering this place? What if he's learning it? Because if that's true, then every time he appears, he's running an experiment. And the people trapped inside the town are the test subjects. Now think about this. The boy in white always appears calm. He rarely shows fear. He never seems surprised by the monsters. He knows where people need to go. He arrives at impossible moments. Then he disappears before anyone can ask the questions that actually matter. For years, fans assumed that meant he knew everything. But look closer. The show has quietly revealed something completely different. He doesn't know everything. He only knows enough. And that difference changes the entire story. Because if he were human, he would remember. If he were a ghost, he would warn people clearly. If he were protecting the town, he wouldn't keep allowing the same disasters to happen again and again. But that's exactly what happens. And this is where it gets darker. The boy in white doesn't prevent tragedy. He redirects it. That isn't the behavior of a lost child. It's the behavior of something managing an outcome. Look at what the show is actually telling us. Whenever the boy in white appears, viewers naturally focus on what he says. But that's not the real mystery. The real mystery is what he refuses to explain. He never tells Victor, who created the town. He never explains the monsters. He never reveals what the trees actually are. He never answers the biggest questions. Instead, he gives tiny instructions. Go here. Hide there. Follow this path. Wait. Leave. Almost like someone completing steps in a larger process. Why? Because explaining the truth would change human behavior. And maybe that's exactly what he cannot allow. This is the detail everyone missed. Real guides teach. The boy in white only directs. Those are completely different things. Teaching creates understanding. Direction creates obedience. And throughout every season, the boy in white asks people to obey without understanding. That pattern has never changed. Now remember Victor. Out of everyone trapped inside the town, Victor has spent the most time with the boy in white. For decades. If anyone should understand who he really is, it should be Victor. But Victor doesn't. Think about how strange that is. Victor trusts him. Victor follows him. But Victor never truly understands him. Isn't that exactly how you would expect someone to behave around a force that manipulates rather than communicates? Victor isn't being educated. He's being guided. Those aren't the same thing. But here's what changes everything. There's one moment that completely breaks the illusion. One moment where the boy in white appears to miscalculate. Most fans saw it as emotional. We think it was evidence. Because the boy in white expected someone to react one way, and they didn't. That single failure reveals something terrifying. He's predicting human decisions, not controlling them. Which means he doesn't possess perfect knowledge. He operates using probability. Just like someone observing an experiment. Now, ask yourself something. Why would an all-powerful supernatural protector ever need to predict anything? He wouldn't. Prediction only matters when uncertainty exists. And uncertainty means limitation. The boy in white has limits. The show has hidden those limits in plain sight. Notice how every appearance follows a pattern. He rarely stays long. He almost never answers follow-up questions. He disappears before conversations become too detailed. Many viewers think that's simply because the writers want to preserve mystery. But inside the story, there may be another explanation. Maybe he literally cannot stay. Maybe whatever he is can only enter our reality for brief windows. Not because he chooses to leave. Because he's forced to. That would explain something fans have debated for years. Why doesn't he simply tell everyone the truth in one conversation? Why keep speaking in riddles? Why wait months or even years to appear again? Because perhaps those aren't creative choices. Perhaps they're rules. Rules even he cannot break. And once you accept that possibility, every appearance becomes less comforting and much more frightening, because limited beings make mistakes. Perfect beings don't. Now think back to every important death in the series. How many could have been prevented with one honest warning? More than we want to admit. Yet the boy in white never gives that warning.
Why?
Most fans answer, because destiny. But what if destiny has nothing to do with it? What if he needs certain events to happen? Not because he's evil, because the system he's part of depends on those outcomes. Suddenly, every tragedy looks different. Every sacrifice feels planned. Every survival feels selected. Not random, not fate, selection. And that's exactly how experiments work. You don't save every subject. You observe which ones survive. The terrifying possibility isn't that the boy in white wants people dead. It's that death may simply be data. And if that's true, then we've been asking the wrong question since season 1. The question isn't, who is the boy in white? The real question is, who or what is collecting the results of his mistakes? Now, let's test this theory against the evidence. Because a good theory doesn't rely on one mysterious scene. It has to explain dozens of moments that seemed unrelated. And the more we connect those moments, the harder it becomes to believe the boy in white is simply a friendly supernatural child. The first piece of evidence is Victor himself. Victor has lived in the town longer than almost anyone. He has watched generations arrive, disappear, and die. If the boy in white had one purpose, to save people, then Victor should know more than anyone else. But he doesn't. That is the first contradiction. Victor knows where certain things are. He remembers strange events. He remembers symbols, trees, tunnels, and places most people have never seen. But when it comes to the boy in white, his understanding never grows. He follows instructions exactly the same way he did as a child. Look at what the show is actually telling us. Decades have passed, yet Victor is still waiting for answers. That doesn't happen when someone is teaching you. It happens when someone only gives you the next instruction. Almost like moving a chess piece. Never explaining the game. Now think about the faraway trees. Almost every fan agrees they are one of the most mysterious parts of From. They don't behave like normal objects. They don't transport people in predictable ways. Sometimes they help. Sometimes they create even greater danger. But here's the question nobody asks. If the boy in white understands these trees so well, why doesn't he explain how they actually work? He clearly knows they are important. He directs people toward them. He appears near them. He even uses them to influence major events. Yet he never says what they are. That silence matters. Because if the trees are part of a larger system, then understanding them would give humans something dangerous.
Choice.
And maybe that is exactly what the boy in white cannot allow. This is the detail everyone missed. Every time someone learns something on their own, the town reacts. Jade starts seeing impossible symbols. Tabitha discovers places she was never supposed to find. Boyd keeps uncovering truths that lead to even bigger mysteries. Knowledge always creates consequences. Meanwhile, the boy in white never gives knowledge. He only changes direction. That isn't guidance. That's containment. And this is where it gets darker. Let's talk about Tabitha. Her journey changed everything because she actually escaped the town, at least for a time. Most viewers saw the boy in white pushing her from the lighthouse as an act of rescue. But what if that wasn't rescue at all? Think carefully about what happened. Tabitha was getting closer and closer to answers. She reached one of the highest points anyone had ever reached. She was asking the right questions. Then, suddenly, the boy in white appeared. Not to explain anything. Not to reveal the truth. He simply pushed her. Everyone focuses on the push. But the push isn't the mystery. The timing is. Why intervene at that exact moment? If he wanted to save her, why wait until she had already reached the lighthouse? If he wanted her to learn the truth, why remove her before she discovered it herself? Those choices only make sense if the goal wasn't saving Tabitha. The goal was controlling what she learned. That completely reframes the scene. It wasn't an escape.
It was a reset.
She left the board temporarily. Then she came back exactly where the system needed her. Notice something else. The boy in white never looks desperate, even during chaos. When monsters attack, when people die, when entire plans collapse, he remains strangely calm, almost detached. That emotional distance feels unnatural. A real child would panic. A ghost reliving trauma would show pain. But he behaves like someone observing variables inside an experiment. Watching, adjusting, recording, never grieving. Now, let's compare him to the monsters. At first, they seem like complete opposites. The monsters hunt. The boy in white appears helpful. Simple, right? Maybe not. Because both groups follow rules. The monsters never break their hunting patterns. They smile.
They tempt.
They wait. They manipulate. The boy in white also follows strict patterns. He appears briefly. He avoids direct explanations. He disappears. Neither side behaves freely. Both act as though invisible rules control them. That similarity cannot be ignored. What if they aren't enemies at all? What if they're different parts of the same system? One group creates pressure. The other prevents total collapse. Think about any scientific experiment. You can't let every subject die immediately. You also can't let them leave whenever they want. You apply pressure, then relief,
Fear.
then hope,
Loss.
then possibility. The balance keeps the experiment alive. Doesn't that sound familiar? The town constantly swings between despair and hope. Every time people are ready to give up, something changes. A clue appears. A vision. A mysterious voice. The boy in white. Hope returns. People keep fighting. The cycle continues. But here's what changes everything. Hope may not exist to save the characters. Hope may exist to keep the experiment running. Without hope, everyone would stop trying. Without fear, nobody would change. The town needs both. And suddenly the boy in white and the monster stop looking like opposites. They look like partners performing different functions. One creates terror. The other creates just enough hope to keep the terror meaningful. And if that idea is true, then every appearance by the boy in white has never been about protecting humanity. It has been about maintaining balance. A balance that no one inside the town even realizes they're trapped inside. Which leads to an even more disturbing question. If the boy in white isn't trying to free the people from, who is he trying to keep the experiment alive for? Now we reach the most disturbing part of this theory. Because if the boy in white is not human and if he is not truly trying to save anyone, then we have to ask the one question the show keeps avoiding. Who gave him his job?
Think about it.
The boy in white behaves less like a person and more like a function. He appears only when the story reaches a critical point. He nudges events instead of controlling them. He never celebrates victories. He never mourns losses. He simply appears, changes the direction of the story, and disappears. That is not emotion. That is protocol. Look at what the show is actually telling us. Every major force inside the town has a purpose. The monsters hunt. The talismans protect. The faraway trees move people. The music box influences reality. The cicadas spread fear. Nothing exists without a role. So, why should the boy in white be different? Maybe he isn't a mysterious child at all. Maybe he is another mechanism. A living part of the system itself. And this is where it gets darker. Throughout the series, people keep believing they are making free choices. Boyd chooses to fight. Jade chooses to search for answers. Tabitha chooses to keep digging. Victor chooses to trust his memories. But what if those choices were never completely theirs? Notice what happens before almost every major decision. Someone receives a sign, a vision, a coincidence, a warning, or an appearance from the boy in white. Those moments don't force decisions. They influence them. That difference is critical. A prison doesn't always need locked doors. Sometimes it only needs invisible guidance. Imagine placing hundreds of people inside a maze. You don't tell them where to go. You simply move a few lights. Most of them will walk exactly where you want, believing they chose the path themselves. The boy in white may be doing exactly that. Not controlling minds, controlling possibilities. That would explain why he makes mistakes. Because probabilities are never perfect. Even the best prediction can fail when a human acts unexpectedly. Remember every time someone ignored the obvious, every reckless decision, every impossible survival. Those moments aren't flaws in the story. They're proof that the experiment can never be fully controlled. Humans remain unpredictable. And maybe that is exactly what the system is studying. This is the detail everyone missed. The boy in white never seems surprised by death, but he does seem interested in reactions. Watch carefully. His attention is almost always focused on what people choose after tragedy, not the tragedy itself. That changes everything. Death isn't the event.
Choices.
The monsters create the pressure. The boy in white observes the response. Suddenly the town starts looking less like a haunted place and more like a laboratory. A laboratory where fear is the experiment, hope is the control variable, and human choice is the final measurement. Now think about Jade. The more he searches for logic, the stranger his visions become. It's as if the town resists being understood. Then look at Boyd. Every breakthrough comes with a new burden. Every answer opens an even larger mystery. The system never rewards discovery. It redirects it, exactly the way the boy in white does. Victor is another example. He's the longest-running subject in the experiment. He has survived longer than anyone else. Yet survival hasn't given him freedom. It has only made him more valuable. He remembers enough to keep the cycle alive, but never enough to end it. That can't be an accident. And neither can Ethan. Many viewers believe Ethan shares a special connection with the boy in white because of innocence. But what if innocence isn't the reason? What if Ethan represents something else entirely? Potential. Children adapt faster than adults. They accept impossible realities without demanding logical explanations. If the town is studying human behavior, then children would be its most important subjects. Not because they are weak, because they are still changing. And who understands children better than someone who looks exactly like one? That appearance may not be random. It may be camouflage, a form chosen to lower fear and increase trust. After all, how many people would follow instructions from a terrifying creature? Very few. But a lonely child in white? Almost everyone lowers their guard. That single design choice becomes one of the smartest forms of manipulation in the entire series. Now connect everything. The boy in white appears at critical moments. He offers direction, never truth. He preserves hope but never freedom. He predicts decisions but occasionally miscalculates them. He follows invisible rules. He behaves like a mechanism, not a person. And his biggest mistake wasn't failing to save someone. It was revealing that he doesn't fully understand humanity. That tiny imperfection exposes him. A real child would grow wiser over time. An all-knowing entity would never miscalculate. But an artificial observer, one designed to study human behavior, would do exactly what we've been watching for 4 seasons. Observe.
Adjust. Repeat.
Which leads to one final possibility. The boy in white isn't trapped inside the town. He's part of the thing that traps everyone else. Not the creator. Not the prisoner. The caretaker of the cycle. And if Season 4 is moving toward exposing the intelligence behind Frump's endless nightmare, then the boy in white may not become humanity's greatest ally. He may become the first witness forced to choose between following his programming or betraying the system that created him. Because if he really made one mistake, then someone or something has probably noticed. And if the system starts eliminating its own caretaker, who will be left to guide the people of From through the darkness?